Okay, so what is a step function? A step function is a graph that has just horizontal lines. That's all it is. And it looks like a staircase. That's why we call it a step function. Because each horizontal line is a step. Notice that the steps, they're horizontal, so they don't have a slant. Okay? A step function is going to be defined for intervals of real numbers. So the domain is going to be intervals of real numbers, but the range is discrete. The range is discrete, which means it's just going to be a list. Now, this is not continuous. This is discontinuous. So whenever you're trying to graph a step function, you have to lift your pencil. So for me to I have to lift up my pencil. It's not continuous, okay? So let's go ahead and graph a couple step functions together. So let's go ahead and look at example 3. So for example 3 on page 49, it says the cost of mailing a first-class letter is determined by rates adopted by the U.S. Postal Service. The rates adopted in 2016 charge 47 cents for letters not over 1 ounce, 68 cents if not over 2 ounces, 89 cents if not over 3 ounces, and $1.10 if not over 3.54 ounces. Okay, so this is my weight. This is X. So the weight is X. So that is my weight. That's the weight of the envelope in ounces. And the Y value is the cost. And that cost is in dollars. So we are going to make a step function. We're going to graph it out based on that table. We're going to create a graph. Now I want you to notice these intervals that we have. So when you're looking at the intervals, notice that on the left, it's not equal to. And on the right, it is equal to. Because when you're looking at the step function, let's look at this example again. Notice how this example started with a closed circle and ended with an open circle. Okay. The one that we're graphing now is going to start with a dot. No, sorry, it's going to start with a circle and end with a dot. So when we graph it, every step is going to start with a open circle and end with a closed circle. All right, so let's go ahead and graph it. So when we graph it, for my first step, so again, the weight is at the bottom. So from 0 to 1, I'm going to make a bar, and that bar should be at 47. And I realize that this is, it's a little tricky because we're counting by 20 cents. So 47 cents is going to be right above 0.4. So I'm going to make a bar or a step. It's going to start with a open circle, and it's going to end with a closed circle, and you're going to connect it. Can't really tell that that's open though. Let me see if I could do better. I'm going to make it extra big so you all can see. Okay, but that's my first step at 47 cents. So what I did was I just graphed this first step. This first step began at x equals 0, and it stretched to x equals 1, and put that bar at 47 cents. Where does the next step go? 68 cents. So 68 cents. So it's going to just go up just a little bit, but this one is starting at 1, so I'm going to put it here. and it's ending at 2. So we kind of have to approximate to the best of your ability. Try to determine where 68 cents would fall. These numbers are a little tricky to graph because they're not on the actual axis. So we have to approximate. Try to graph the next step by yourself. So the next step starts at 2 and ends at 3, and that's 89 cents. So let's see, this would be $1, so it's going to be about here. That would be my next step. Oops, somebody has to touch the screen. Thank you. All right, now notice that this last step, though, doesn't go all the way to 4. So this last step is going to be a small step because it's not going from 3 to 4. It's going to 3 to 3.54. So this next step is going to be really short, and we're going to put it at $1.10. So $1.10 will be right under that $1.20. So I'm going to make a baby step, kind of. And that would represent that graph. So that's it. A step function is just a series of horizontal bars. Okay. So let's talk about the domain and range. So your domain is going to be from 0 all the way up to 3.54, and it includes 0.54. So we're going to actually do this in interval notation instead of set builder. So our domain, let's go back. Notice that on x equals 0, does everyone see how this has an open circle right here? So that's because this is an open circle, 0 gets what? A parentheses or a bracket? What do you think it's going to get? Parentheses. And then it goes all the way up to here, and that dot is closed. So what do you think 3.54 is going to get? A bracket. So our domain is going to be 0 to 3.54 with a bracket. That's our domain. Now our range is the list of numbers. So for your range, you're just telling me where each step is on the y-axis as a list. So because it's a list, that means it's discrete because it's points, okay? So you have to use these special brackets, and we're going to write our numbers. So 47, 0.47, 0.68, 0.89, and $1.10. That would be my range. So the range is an actual list of numbers. Okay, so we have one more for today. We're going to do another step. I want you to try to do this one by yourself. Still on page 50. Go ahead and read that. Right under it, it says check. Read that and see if you can graph that out. Still on page 50. So we're talking about Chris and Joaquin design figurines for board games and toy companies. The rate they charge depends on the number of hours they spend creating the figurines. So we have to draw a graph that represents the charges, okay? So here are my steps. So my first step is going to start at x equals 0 and end at 5. I'll do the first step with you and let you do the rest. Now, when I start this step, am I starting with an open circle or a closed circle? Open, and then what does it end with? Closed. So this one, these numbers are a little easier to work with. So this first step is at y equals 500. So I'm going to draw this first step with you. So we have an open circle, then we have a closed circle, and the closed circle is at 5, and you connect it. All right, go ahead and draw in the next 3 steps. Okay, so our next step starts at 5, and notice that each step is a little different in length. They're not all the same length. So this first step goes from 0 to 5. The next step starts at 5 and ends at 15, so it's a little longer, and we got to go up to 1400. So 1400, that would be a little less than 1500. So open circle starting on the 5, closed circle on the 15, connect. Who had a step that looked like that? Good. The next step goes up to 2500. It starts at 15 and ends at 30. So open circle on the 25, closed circle on the 30, and connect. And the last step starts at 30 and ends at 50. So open circle, and this one goes up to 4,000. So this step is at 4,000. So we got a little bit of a jump. And we have an open circle on the 30 and a closed circle at the very end, which is 50. And that's your graph. That is how you graph a step function. So now under it, before you all pack up, let's write the domain and range. So let's look at the domain. Domain is my x values. So when I'm looking at my x values, I'm noticing that it starts off with 0. And does 0 get a bracket or a parentheses? Parentheses, because it's not included. And then what's the highest x value we go to? And does 50 get a bracket or a parentheses? Ooh, a bracket, because it's equal to. Notice how we have a closed circle on the 50? So 50 gets a bracket. And for our range, because it's discrete, you're just listing the numbers. Starting with the smallest or the lowest cost. So we have 500. And then after 500, it goes to 1400. And then after 1400, what's the next Y value? 2500, 2500. And then after 2500, 4000. Because the range is discrete. So we have to make a list. And that would be your domain and your range. So we're still working in homework 6. Homework 6 is due Monday. But we are not finished with this material that for you to fully do homework 6 until tomorrow. So you will be able to start it. Here is homework 6. You'll be able to start it. You do need graph paper. But I want to remind you that the last day to submit 1 through 7, and that's 7 homework assignments, that's 350 points, is Friday, August 26th. And what does this say down here at the bottom? No exceptions. So 7 assignments by August 26th. Most of you guys, this class is pretty good about turning in your assignments, but you don't want to wait to the end, okay? Because our test is August 26th. So if you turn in homework after the test date, that's not helping you. The test is based off your homework. So you really need to have your homework finished and make sure you're having an understanding moving up to it. So take a minute, start looking at the questions for homework 6, and I'll grab a book and we can kind of look at them together. The homework tray is in the front, has a pink sign.